Hey, welcome back to Driver 88. And this is my RS3 sedan. I've had it now for about a year and a half. And now that I've got the mods kind of where I like it as a daily, I'm really quite happy with the car. But like you and me and every other car enthusiast, I always want to try other cars that compete with it. So the A45S has been updated not that long ago, and I have a 2025 example that I can drive with our friends at Cavallo Prestige. So I thought I'd do a bit of a comparison and then may as well throw in the M2 as well and look at those figures and prices, performance and driving impressions. Looks pretty good under this lighting, don't you think? Anyway, A45, let's find one. Now, looks-wise, I've always been a bit of an Audi man, owning a few of them. The original A45 was way too over the top and F-boy, excuse my language, for me. The 2020 second gen A45 just made everything look so much more grown up and classier. This is the facelift from, what, 18 months, 2 years ago? And we've got a new front fascia, new lights and rear lights, and etc. The mechanicals are pretty much unchanged besides a few, I think, tuning changes to the steering. I'll show you an RS3 hatch now because there are also some for sale at Cavallo. The RS3 has been updated ever so slightly, and I don't know if it really looks better or worse. It just looks slightly different. But in a subtle spec like this is the sort of A45 I'd go for. Subtle, not too over the top. I don't need some ridiculous wing on the back for going to get groceries. We don't need more downforce. Yeah, I think we should take it for a drive and then also compare it to some of the M2s upstairs. Now that's another car that's had a slight facelift this year, and damn it, Cavallo sold the 2025 M2. That has had some changes to its front fascia and rear as well. What do you think looks best out of the three cars? RS3 hatch, A45 hatch, or M2? So talking aesthetics, the M2, a lot of people used to criticize this car originally when it came out for aesthetics. Like the M4, it's grown on me a fair bit, particularly in white. There's a white one, there's a blue one, there's this one, there's a whole bunch. I think white would be my choice. So power against my RS3. 20 more horsepower, the same amount of torque. These cars, even though they do things quite differently with 4 and 5 cylinders and different displacement, have relatively similar straight line performance. Claimed 3.9 seconds here, but a lot of people will probably get 3.7 or possibly even better. With my car, the RS3, claimed 3.8 seconds. I've got 3.69 seconds on the draggy with my stock car. Quarter mile, 12.5, 12.7 for this, I think, around. What completely blows these out of the water now is the new M2. 473 horsepower in the compact sports sort of group that they call them now is insane, and that will do low 12s. And given that it's almost gone up another 20 grand in price, it's kind of pushed itself out of the question of these three different cars. AMG hasn't really increased their power, and the RS3 hasn't increased the power of the RS3 for now 7-8 years or so, and that also makes me think, instead of an A45, should I be driving a new M2 as well? We'll do that soon. Maybe I was cheating a little bit because I do have a downpipe on my car. Hold on a second, I'll get you a stock RS3 to compare to the A45 sound. But basically, the 5-cylinder is one of the biggest reasons why people buy these cars. I just wish that Audi would increase the performance and power of them because it hasn't changed in 7 years. I think it's more of an EU emissions problem. Right, when it comes to the interior, I'll be honest, I prefer these buckets over my RS3 seats. They just have a lot more side bolstering and feel a bit more purposeful, even though I've got it as a daily driver car. Now, there are buckets finally in the 8Y update as an option. And of course, the M2 has buckets as an option. They're like 8,000 or 9,000 Australian dollars. But I think the seats, they are a win for the AMG for my preferences. When it comes to the rest of the interior, unfortunately, AMG has the same disease as Audi, and they've decided to put piano black in all the places that we put our keys and scratch things and touch things in the wrong place. And a lot of people, particularly with Audis, will put like PPF covering over the top of this center console. I don't know why brands do this, you tell me. Steering wheel. Now I find the steering wheel has kind of gotten fat in the A45. It's not as bad as some BMWs, but it's kind of a little bit too fat for my liking. Central screen is fine, it kind of works. What does also work is the rear seats in the A45. They are deceptively big. So with the rear seats, not that I use mine that often, I have a pretty tall body and my head is not hitting the roof. Also, I've got a decent amount of knee room for a hatch. I think it's roomier in here than my RS3 sedan. Let's talk dollars and cents. They're Australian dollars, so these numbers are going to be very high if you're not from Australia. These things are 134 to 130 grand Australian now. My God, have prices gone up so much. What's also gone into the stratosphere is a BMW M2, starts at 143 grand. If you want the bucket seats, it's 153. Not long ago, that was the price of a brand new M3. The RS3 also has gone up to 120 grand. I remember back in 2018, I bought one new for 97. So that hasn't kind of gone up as much, but arguably also the RS3 hasn't changed that much besides adding a diff and a bunch of other handling changes. Right, first impressions of driving the A45. Firstly, I think we have a fair bit more tire roar noise in here. The other thing that I've noticed in driving these cars day to day, the turning circle is so much better in this car. The turning circle is better, and also I'm not sure if you get a 360 cam in the 8Y.2 facelift, but the 360 cam in this is better than my RS3 camera, which is just rear facing and not that great. The other thing that's a little bit more high tech in the A45, of course, the heads up display has a fair bit more detail to it. Now, I do like the way this thing responds to your inputs though. It does feel just that little bit more sharp across the board, whether it's the steering, whether it's the dual clutch 8-speed, everything just is a little bit faster. The responsiveness of this 8-speed, I mean, it must be milliseconds, but it definitely is faster than the 7-speed dual clutch in the RS3. Once we put everything into Sport Plus or Track, I mean, I do like the sounds of the upshifts. They're very, very efficient and fast little farty noises. You know, the weight transfer, it's not super satisfying, but the sound also, look, it's kind of likable, but it's nothing on the 5-cylinder turbo. Yeah, those shifts are just so much faster than my RS3, so much faster. One thing that I'm not a fan of is the amount of buttons I have here, and just the overall huge amount of options I have for all the sports settings. Also, sitting in the back of the car, I felt like I had a bit of headroom, but now I have a long body sitting in the front. I'm kind of looking into the sill here and then looking into the A-pillar here. So visibility back and sides is fine, but front on visibility is not as good as you'd think in a hatch. It is rather satisfying how the front lifts up when you start feeding in the power. It does very much feel like a go-kart, and I think the RS3 hatch doesn't have that sort of as much of a go-kart feel, even though it's a hatchback. Now, it's not long ago that we drove the brand new A35 hatch with the 48-volt assistance. And I generally like that car. This is a full step above, I think, in performance, particularly in straight line performance. It is a fair chunk of change higher, but I think I would prefer to get maybe a slightly used one of these, keeping in mind we have a 5-year warranty, than buying a brand new A35 for 100 and something grand. One other little thing that I think this car is better than my RS3 is in your comfort mode, the responsiveness and the way that the gearbox drops down if you all of a sudden want more power and to get up and go is better than the RS3. In the normal drive mode and comfort mode in the RS3, the car just feels too asleep and it takes just too much revs and accelerator input for it to wake up. So a verdict on the new A45. Should I sell my RS3? Look, there's a few things that the A45 certainly has over the RS3. It feels a fair bit more nimble, even though it's slightly heavier than the same RS3 hatch. The steering just feels a little bit sharper and lighter on its feet, and the responsiveness is probably the biggest thing that it has over the RS3. It just gets into the power so much faster. Looks and sound, I think you'd have to go with the RS3. For the moment, I'm not tempted, but what I am tempted to do is get a facelift 25 M2 on the channel and compare it again to this, because BMW, I think, is kicking the asses of these two brands, RS and AMG, of the last sort of 2 or 3 years. And it's being shown in the sales figures. If you are interested in an M2 or an A45 or an RS3 hatch, our friends at Cavallo can help you out. There's a link in the description. This is driver 88, and I'll see you next time.